well as other matters that might arise from it, places where there were other people. One of those other people happens to be Hunter Biden. Now, this committee, in its scope of this investigation, indicates that these classified materials are also relevant because, for example, the Oversight Committee has requested information regarding the classified materials discovered in the president's home where his son has resided during the time period relevant to the investigation and personal office. The White House has not provided this information. Obviously, his son was receiving payments from Romania, Russia, Ukraine, China. If there are in those documents that relate to, for example, the prosecutor in Ukraine, or Burisma itself, or other aspects of Ukraine, or any of the parties or individuals, obviously, that were making payments to Hunter Biden, that would be relevant, wouldn't it?
It would be relevant. One of the things I addressed in my testimony is I say that the most concerning line for me in this inquiry is pre-office conduct. And what I say is that there should be a type of rebuttable presumption against bringing in pre-office conduct. But there is precedent for it when it forms.
Well, and this, he was in office at the time because he wouldn't have had access to classified documents. These are not things that he did as a private citizen. He had these documents given to him. I want to ask you, in his scope as both senator and as vice president, there's been a lot of talk that perhaps the president inadvertently ended up with these documents. Really a classified document. Was mishandling them. Did you infer intent by knowledge of the law? President Biden knows how to handle classified documents.
Adolf Hitler.
That be attributed to his intent.
It all goes.
Je vooral lang, maar ik wil bij Adolf Hitler. In mijn geval is het gewoon tegen.
Don't have a confession. I'm not too sure if the documents matter will become relevant for the impeachment inquiry. I said earlier that the issue that concerned me about the documents, they ended up being distributed to different sources, it appears, that they went to different locations, and there are accounts of being in the president's home. The question is, divided and why? But it's not clear to me whether that will amount to an impeachable offense or not.
Right, you have to make that next step. I've seen some of these documents as the chairman of the intelligence committee. I can tell you they are of the highest level of concern to national security. I think we do have to get to the bottom of why was he taking these and what was he doing.
Chair, now recognized. Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent motion. Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent motion. I ask unanimous consent to introduce page 131 of the transcript of Devin Archer's testimony, where the question is asked, but he did not provide the Burisma executives with actual access to his father. The access to his father was an illusion of access.
Gentlemen's out of order. You'll have time. Your 5 minutes. Chair now recognizes Conley from Virginia for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is it admitted?
The clock's ticking.
What's the objection based on?
Goldman's taking your time. Distract. Yeah, you're taking time away from me. Distract. Deflect. Hold on to those two words. Distract and deflect. Because I think this is all about, look over here, not over there. So, Professor Gerhard, when I've heard concern about branding. So, shouldn't we be concerned about all those Biden towers all over the world where foreign partnerships were formed? And United States, I've seen in the Philippines and Turkey. I even saw one in Chicago. Shouldn't that be a concern? In terms of the influence of foreign and domestic.
If there were such things as Biden buildings.
Well, was there anyone who did have them?
I think we all know who.
Well, could you tell us, because,
Well,
give me the name, Professor Gerhard.
Talking about.
Thank you. So, when President Biden appointed his son to manage U.S. foreign policy.
Hallo,
His son by forgetting a contract anyhow. And then after leaving the White House getting a $2 billion deal, we're told he's applied for all the money, foreign money. Shouldn't that be a concern to us that maybe a sweetheart deal occurred with the blessing of the president, foreign money, and should we look at Hunter Biden for that, given the fact that he had handled Middle East and land?
It should have been a concern with President Trump and the Senate.
Trump, I got that one. I'm sorry. Well, let's see.
Discussie?
I'm looking at.
Discussie houden. Blijf.
I heard again.
Ja, maar het is een geheim, het is gewoon een geheim iets houden.
He's not prejudging, of course.
Het is gewoon iets geheims iets houden, weet je. Je weet niet wat het is, dit is iets houden.
Activity like obstruction, fraud.
CNN.
So let's take fraud. So shouldn't we be concerned that a New York judge just found President Biden's organization committing fraud every year for 15 years, and that under the martial law of New York, that Biden organization is now subject to dismember? And in this case, we're not speculating. A judge actually made that ruling? Yes. Should we be concerned about the personal? Moving on. Shouldn't we be concerned about the personal behavior of President, for example, President Trump or President Biden being found guilty of sexual assault?
Je leest mij toen al de verslagen. Nog zou je allemaal. Doe het maar over.
Mooi kitje, hè, joh.
Nou, al die rest van die gaan we beginnen? Nu ben je natuurlijk ook een woordje. Nou, reden genoeg om naar gelijk te staan. Hier zit nog veel meer andere redenen. Hoge slagingspercentage, loopafstand van CBR, meer dan 100.000 geslaagde toezichten en de best beoordeelde theorie.
Witnesses like Rudy Giuliani who are afraid of succeeding. That's what this is all about. This is about our need to defend Joe Biden. This is about their need to make sure we get off top. That we no longer talk about the pending criminal trial of the former president of the United States. Anything worthy of examination. That is not this. I yield. Chair to recognize.
Point
of order.
Nou, ik weet niet hoe rechters zijn in Amerika, dat weet ik niet. Ja, dat kan ik lijsten, hè.
Mr. Donald for 5 minutes. Out of order, Mr. Goldman. When your time is, I'd like to introduce something by
Beide moet dood, de regio moet dood, de kankerjood die kankermof houden, die Nederlands geld schuld is.
For a point of order, they absolutely did. Chair recognizes.
Geen minuutje al even.
Excuses.
Donald's time is not going to take.
Excuses.
Mr. Chairman, I request the stock be set back to 5 minutes.
Ja, ik meen het toch. Even hard.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a parliamentary inquiry then? Are we not to make points of order on either side during this?
You keep speaking about no evidence. Why don't you all just listen? I'm trying to introduce evidence. You've already had your. Is it in there? Mr. Donald?
Oh, nee.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We need distance between us and the virus this time. You're making dead drops where you can stink. Pick on the dune buggy and let's get it moving. I have time.
Original chart from the IRS that was business practices of Hunter Biden and his associates. This org chart is from 2014. Now, Mr. Levinsky, when my former life, I was in community banking, and I'm comfortable with looking at organizational charts. When I first saw this chart, the first thing I thought about was a real estate holding company or a developer, and this is not to demean developers in the great state of America, but developers typically have multiple companies that float with various business interests and business lines. But the funny thing is that in the business dealings of Hunter Biden, there is no real estate. None at all. So, Mr. Dubinsky, in your professional experience, looking at this organizational chart of business structure, what do you see?
It's a very complicated structure. What's going on? Who's behind them? How's the money moving between them? And what is the substance of the transaction really going on?
Mr. Dubinsky, you think it's the interest of this committee that is now in an inquiry phase to actually find out all of the flow of money between these entities and what the purpose was?
Absolutely.
Next slide, please. For my colleagues on the other side, we're going to start talking evidence. This is now a slide of the organizational chart of the Hunter Biden business companies and with associates from 2018, from the same IRS investigators who broke down the business structure in 2014. Does this slide cause you the same concern, Mr. Dubinsky?
Yes, it does.
Okay, now let's talk about some more. Actually, one point I want to make on this. Ladies and gentlemen, and I know it's kind of small, so I would love to submit, I'll submit all this for the record. I would love my colleagues on the other side to see this. In 2014, one of the key owners was Devin Archer, who did